beneath the endless towers of steel, where sunlight never reaches and the air itself tastes of rust. Humanity endures. They call this place Hive-Turs, a world where machines never sleep and neither do the people who serve them. Every breath here costs a price. Every heartbeat echoes through the pipes and gears that hold this city together. Down here there is no day, no night. Only the pulse of the manufactorums, the great engines of the Imperium that feed on human lives like coal. I was born in one of them. I don't remember the stars. I don't even remember my mother's face, only the sound, the endless rhythm of pistons, drills, and hammers. That sound became my lullaby, my language, my God. They said work was holy. That labor was prayer. Every bolt we tightened, every piece of steel we forged, it all served the emperor of mankind. At least, that's what they told us. We believed it because believing was the only thing that made the pain worth it. Our world was divided into levels. The higher you lived, the cleaner the air, the closer to light, to safety, to meaning, but we, the workers, lived at the bottom. The air down here was thick with ash and smoke. Sometimes, when the vents failed, the fog would turn toxic. People would choke in their sleep, and their bodies would be carried off before the next shift began. No one asked questions. Questions slowed production. We were told we were lucky. Lucky to serve, lucky to live, lucky to die in the Emperor's name. But deep inside, I think we all knew. Luck had nothing to do with it. A faint echo of machinery rises, grinding metal, rhythmic and cold. Every morning the alarms would scream. We'd line up for inspection. Gray uniforms stained with oil and sweat. The overseers walked among us, their eyes cold, their voices mechanical. They didn't need to shout. The servo skulls that floated beside them did the work, scanning faces, checking productivity records, recording every movement. You couldn't hide. You couldn't rest, even your thoughts felt like they belonged to someone else, and yet, even in that endless darkness, something inside me refused to die. A small, fragile spark. The memory of what freedom might feel like. Sometimes, during maintenance shifts, I'd climb to the higher platforms, just to see the city from above. From there, you could almost imagine beauty, the lights of the manufactorum stretching into infinity, the slow pulse of reactors glowing like dying stars. It was peaceful in its own terrible way. That's when I met Jorik. He was older, quiet, sharp-eyed, with a way of looking at the world that made you wonder if he knew something you didn't. He said he used to work in the data archives before he was reassigned. That word meant many things in Hive-Turs, but mostly it meant punishment. He told me stories about the stars, about the surface, about life before the factories. I thought he was lying, everyone did. But something in his voice made me believe him. He said there was a time when humans built machines to help them, not to own them, that people once looked at the sky and dreamed. I couldn't imagine it, a sky that wasn't made of metal. For the first time, I began to see the hive differently. The endless pipes weren't veins of progress, they were chains. The lights weren't guiding us. They were cages. And then, one night, everything changed. A malfunction in the central generator plunged our sector into darkness. For hours, the hum of the machines stopped, the first silence I had ever known. It felt like the world was holding its breath. People panicked. Without the rhythm of labor, they didn't know how to exist. Some prayed, some screamed, but Jorik, he smiled. "This is what freedom sounds like," he whispered. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't being watched. Among the endless crowd of workers and travelers, Jorik and I were just two more faces, two tired figures in stained coveralls, invisible enough to be ignored. But freedom came with a price I hadn't expected. Without the structure of the manufactorum, no shifts, no quotas, no overseers, I was left alone with something I'd never had before, my own thoughts. And that was terrifying, because when the noise stopped, I finally heard the truth. Mechanical heartbeat slows. Silence. All my life I'd been part of a machine, and in the silence, I realized the machine was still inside me. In the Imperium, even philosophy serves the machine. They say every soul is born with a purpose, that the Emperor himself decides your worth before you draw your first breath. But what they never tell you is how early the machine begins to decide for him. From the moment a child opens their eyes in hive turs, the gears are already turning. Before they can walk, they're tested. Before they can dream, they're sorted. And before they understand what life means, they're told what it's worth. They call it the sacred order of purpose. But it's nothing sacred. It's a system, cold, perfect, and absolute. The strong are marked for the guard, the precise for administration, the devout for the priesthood, and the rest for labor. It sounds efficient. It is efficient. That's what makes it so terrifying. Slow mechanical rhythm starts beneath the voice. Heartbeat of a factory. The first time I saw it was when I was assigned to maintenance, duty near the education wards. Rows of children in gray uniforms marched in silence. Smaller versions of us, their faces empty, eyes already dulled by routine. Their lessons weren't about discovery or imagination. They were about obedience, endurance, sacrifice. They were taught to pray while they worked, to see every ache as holy, to thank the emperor for every scar. And if they hesitated even for a moment, the instructors would remind them, pain was proof of faith, doubt was heresy, tears were weakness. One boy didn't move fast enough during assembly. The servo skull hovering above him hissed, marking his file in red light. The next day, he wasn't there. No one asked why. No one ever asked why. They called it reassignment. We called it vanishing. Sound of distant children chanting a prayer. Soft, haunting. As I watched them, something inside me twisted. They were so young, and yet I saw myself in them. The same blank stare, the same quiet. Acceptance, it hit me then. We weren't raised to serve the machine. We were built by it. I asked Yorick once if it had always been this way. He told me stories, dangerous ones, about ancient times when children could dream freely, when curiosity was not a crime, when questions were not punished, but answered. But in the Imperium, curiosity is corruption, wonder is weakness, and innocence is a defect that must be removed, so they cut it out, bit by bit, lesson by lesson, until nothing is left but obedience. Music deepens, mechanical choir fades into slow, cold drums. The philosophers of the upper spires call it accelerated evolution. They say emotion, imagination, and individuality are primitive traits, flaws to be corrected. They write papers about it. They publish it in the sacred archives, and the priests bless it as divine truth. But what they're really doing is erasing humanity itself. They don't see children, they see resources, units of labor, numbers in a ledger. I've seen the data boards, columns of names, each linked to an output value. The ones who work harder get more rations. The ones who fall behind get fewer, and when those numbers drop too low, the line turns black. Reprocessing. That's what the administrators call it. Reconditioning. Correction or termination, whichever saves more energy. Short silence. Just the echo of a mechanical hum. The people above call it mercy. They say it's better to die serving the emperor than live in failure. But I've seen mercy. And this isn't it. The children who survive grow into instructors. They become the very thing that broke them. They teach others how to obey, how to forget, how to stop feeling, and the cycle continues. A perfect machine, one generation forging the next. Yorick used to say that trauma was the Empire's most reliable fuel. It never runs out. It burns forever. Soft whisper, fading in the background. Faith through labor, strength through obedience. The citizens above see these graduates and call them loyal, disciplined, righteous. They see the sharp uniforms, the mechanical precision, the perfect obedience, but they never see what was sacrificed to create it. They never see the emptiness behind those eyes. Because the system doesn't just teach obedience. It teaches blindness, and blindness is the one virtue every servant must master. Long pause, then a slow, hollow breath. On every world of the Imperium, from the ice prisons of Valhalla to the burning hives of Armageddon, children die believing they are blessed. Their bodies feed the factories, their ashes feed the faith, and those who remain call it holy. Because when you strip away everything, love, hope, freedom, what else is left but faith? Soft mechanical lullaby fades. Distant whisper, the Emperor protects. But deep down I wonder, does he really? Or has even he forgotten what it means to be human? Silence. Then the slow hum of machinery rising again, cold and endless. They told us the flesh was weak, that it was the source of pain, doubt and imperfection, that the machine was purity, the Emperor's true design. At first, I believed it, we all did. The sermons of the Adeptus Mechanicus echoed through the lower levels. Voices of priests wrapped in metal, their words distorted by vox amplifiers, preaching salvation through replacement. Steel does not tire, they said. Circuits do not sin. To them, the path to divinity wasn't through prayer, but through conversion. And so, piece by piece, the workers began to change. A hand lost to the press became a servo grip. A lung burned by fumes was replaced with a respirator. A damaged eye, traded for a lens that could see infrared, ultraviolet, and the flaws in your own soul. At first it was necessity, then it became pride. The more metal a person bore, the closer they were said to be to the machine god, and those who remained purely human were pitied or feared. Sound of metallic whispers, binary prayers in the distance. I remember when Yorick first showed me his augmentations, tiny data ports along his spine, a small interface behind his ear. He said they helped him remember faster. But I saw what he really meant. He wasn't remembering faster. He was forgetting slower. Every time he connected to the data networks, he lost a little more of himself. The lines between thought and code began to blur. Sometimes he'd pause mid-sentence, his eyes flickering, voice trembling like static. When he came back, he'd act as if nothing happened, but I knew. The Yorick who returned wasn't always the one who had left. Faint mechanical heartbeat under soft narration. The Mechanicus called this ascension, a merging of man and machine, guided by logic and purity. But watching it happen, it didn't feel like ascension. It felt like erosion. People stopped dreaming, stopped questioning, stopped feeling. They spoke in code prayers, in phrases of calibration and function. Even their laughter, me and when it came, sounded wrong, like static through broken speakers. And yet, they believed they were becoming closer to the divine. That's what faith does. I suppose it gives meaning to the unbearable. One night during a repair shift, Yorick took me to a place few had seen, the neural foundry. It was said to be where the flesh and metal met. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Inside, the air was heavy with incense and coolant. Monks of the Omnissiah moved in silence, their faces hidden beneath steel masks. Children lay on operating tables, their small limbs wrapped in cables and glowing fiber lines. Could hear their hearts, and I could hear the machines answering. Then pulse for pulse, beat for beat, until both rhythms merged into one, the priests chanted, softly as the surgeons worked. Their words weren't prayers, and they were code, binary hymns, sung to the rhythm of the cutting tools. Each incision was an act of worship, each scream an offering. I wanted to run, but Yorick, he stood still, watching. "This is how they make us better," he whispered. His voice broke when he said it, as if even he didn't believe himself anymore. Long silence. Distant echo of mechanical chanting fades in. When it was over, one of the children sat up. Her eyes were gone, replaced by glowing lenses. Her mouth didn't move, but a voice echoed from within her. Directive received, it said. That voice wasn't hers, it wasn't anyone's, it was the hive itself, speaking through her. And the priests smiled, they called it a miracle. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way her small hands trembled, the way her tears evaporated before they reached her chin, burned away by the heat of her own transformation. That night, I didn't sleep, I couldn't. The hum of the hive sounded different now, less like industry, more like breathing, as if the city itself was alive, and maybe it was, maybe we weren't serving the machines at all. Maybe we were the ones being digested. Mechanical hum grows deeper, layered with whispers. Yorick changed after that night. He spoke less, worked more. The ports on his neck glowed faintly even when he wasn't connected. One morning, he didn't show up for the shift. When I asked about him, the overseer just said, "Reclaimed by the Omnissiah." No one questioned. No one mourned. It was just another line in the production. But I couldn't forget him. Couldn't forget what I saw in that foundry. The look on his face as the machines sang their quiet hymns, and I realized then, the flesh doesn't fear death, it fears being rewritten. Soft heartbeat. Whisper, "Blessed be the machine. Holy is the function." That's what the Imperium never understood. You can strip away the body, rewire the mind, replace every cell with steel, but the soul remembers. It hides in the silence between the gears, in the brief moments when the lights flicker and the machine hesitates. That's where humanity still lives. Small, trembling, but alive. Long fade to silence. Then a faint pulse, slow, uncertain, like the heartbeat of something forgotten. They say the Imperium endures because it forgets nothing. But I think it endures because it forgets too much. Every scream, every child lost to the machinery. It all becomes data, numbers on a report, efficiency metrics, success ratios. And when suffering becomes a statistic, that's when evil starts to look like progress. I once asked a supervisor, quietly, cautiously, if he ever thought about what we were doing. He smiled, that thin, tired smile of a man who stopped asking questions. He said, "The Emperor does not ask why. He asks how much," and that was the last time I ever spoke of it. Low echo of wind, like voices carried through a vast metal corridor. Years passed. Children came and went. The machines kept running, and the hymns kept playing. The walls whispered with the same recycled prayers. That pain was purpose, and obedience was love. I watched them grow, the orphans of the Imperium, stripped of names, trained to serve. They no longer cried when they were taken. They didn't need to. The fear had been programmed out of them. One girl, I remember her name before they erased it, was Lyra. She used to hum when she worked, a faint tune that somehow survived every correction, every punishment, even when her voice began to distort. Even when her throat was half machine, that little melody remained. I asked her once why she did it. She said, "Because the Emperor can't hear whispers. Only songs on a soft pause. Metallic humming blends with faint childlike singing." I think that was the last trace of rebellion left in her. Not a shout. Not a strike, just a song. And then, one day she was gone. No explanation, no record, just gone. The system doesn't need reasons, it just consumes. Deep breath. The voice trembles slightly, as if holding back emotion. They say it takes generations to build perfection, to breed out weakness, to create obedience so pure it doesn't feel like obedience anymore. And they succeeded. Adults, who were once those children, now teachers, priests, and overseers, carry out their duties with perfect devotion. They no longer need guards or chains. Their loyalty is self-sustaining. Because when you destroy a person's childhood, you don't just break them, you build something new in the ruins, something that cannot imagine being free. Sound of ticking machinery. Each tick echoes like a heartbeat. Sometimes at night, when the lights dim and the machines quiet down, you can almost hear it, the sound of them dreaming. Not the dreams of humans, though these dreams are mechanical, ordered, efficient, without chaos or fear. The dreams of a system that believes it is eternal. But the flesh remembers, the soul remembers, even if no one else does. Long silence. Then a single child's laugh, faint, distant, echoing like a ghost. There's a rumor, just a whisper among the underhive workers, that somewhere, deep below the manufactorums, there's a hidden place. A place where the machines sleep, where the walls still hum with the voices of children long forgotten. They say, if you stand very still, you can hear them singing Lyra's song, not out of faith, but out of memory, a memory of what it meant to be alive, of what it meant to feel. The hum grows louder, almost like a choir of distant, broken machines singing in unison. Maybe that's how it ends, not with rebellion or fire, but with a whisper, a single human note inside an ocean of metal. Because the Imperium believes it has erased humanity. But it hasn't. Not completely. It still hides in the cracks, in the static between transmissions, in the ghost light of broken cogitators, in the half-forgotten hum of a child's song. Soft piano begins, one slow, mournful note repeating, and maybe one day, someone will listen closely enough to hear it, to remember that we were more than this, that we were human once, fragile, flawed, and full of wonder, and maybe that memory will be enough. Long silence. Then the final whisper, quiet and steady. The Imperium does not merely use children in war. It builds itself from them. Their innocence is the oil that keeps its gears turning. Their faith, the fire that keeps it alive, and somewhere, buried beneath 10,000 years of silence and steel, a child still sings. Final heartbeat fades into static. Silence.